Hello, everyone. Welcome to Party of One, season 10. I think it's 10. Yeah, it's 10. Dope. Sorry, I was checking stuff. I'm gonna be recording a podcast here for the start of this. We're getting into the tail end of the Hivemind podcast. If you haven't watched any of that or listened to it, heavily recommend it. It's some of the best work that I do with some my good friends, Jacob, Toby Corn, Jacob, and Sigilif Derek. We're going to be finishing out some albums, so I'll be getting into normal solo commentary afterward, but just kind of want to let you know that's how it's going to go.
I'm going to go back to taking a nap. You guys have fun.
Jacob, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. The Devil Wears Prada have released their newest album, Color Decay.
Wow.
See, I feel like I don't want Jake to go away because we need to explain to him why this album is so good.
That's what I'm saying. He's gone. My man's gone.
In the distance,
actually-
we hear
Justin,
him.
you said you listened to this, right?
Yeah, I wasn't feeling it.
Did you have any that you enjoyed?
Salt.
Oh,
I'll
That's
take
it.
one.
That was the song I feel like we were all in agreement.
Yep.
For
Yeah.
this
It
album.
was the one single that we were all in agreement for.
I believe in salt supremacy.
Jake, you actually saved a couple, right?
Yeah, 4 out of 12, I think.
It's what? Salt, Noise, Broken, Exhibition?
No, it's Exhibition, Salt, Broken, and Fire.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So basically, the 3 softest songs and the opener.
Huh.
But I will say, there are some other
Mhm.
redeemable aspects. I think the chorus and Watchtower is still really good. Having gotten to hear that one live when I saw them opening for
Right.
Beartooth earlier this year, definitely has it kind of stuck in my head to a bit more of an extent. And I remember liking parts of Noise, just not the unclean parts, which is where most of my faults come with for this album. To
Yeah.
probably no one's surprise that I don't particularly like the uncleans here. As much as this is one of my least favorite albums I've heard this year, because just
Wow.
sonically, I'm
Oh
just
my.
not liking. I'm not
Yeah.
liking the vocals very much. I came out of this enjoying it more than I expected to. Very contrasting statement I just said, but it's true.
So I also
We're-
came out of this
we're gonna-
enjoying it more than I expected to.
Yes, me too. Me too.
So Jake mentioned Noise real quick. Noise is the best song in this album, right?
Sonically, yes.
Sonically, yes. Objectively, Cancer or 25.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I have 25, but Cancer is a close second.
Yeah. So all that to say that the lyricism on this album is flawless. I have listened to this less than Jacob. I would say I've probably given it a full run through 15, 16 times. I have yet to find a single fault. Not one.
Yeah, there really isn't.
There's just nothing. I think that this year in particular, in terms of their respective genres, we have had a lot of defining scene albums that I think are going to move the scene forward.
Yeah.
I think this, Bad Omens, I think Stand Atlantic for pop punk, North Lane comes to mind. It feels like that this year, scene music in general is going through like a renaissance almost, where we're getting a lot of really strong, really defining albums that are going to mark the next 10 years of how things sound. I had a revelation, Jacob, the other day, like
Yeah.
literally maybe 2-3 days ago, about why I like this so much. and it's because I full disclosure, I do not have a single other Prada song saved besides all 12 on this album,
What about
except
Sour
for
Breath?
one. That's what the one that I was gonna mention, and it's because I was listening to it and I'm like, the lyricism here works so well with the uncleans that
Yes.
I wish every Prada
You're like
song
reading
sounded
my
like
notes.
this. And so this album is effectively that, how their sound from Sour Breath expanded into an album and then executed flawlessly.
I think you got elements of it on the act as well, but
Yeah,
it didn't come with the lyricism
right,
and the
right.
sadness.
hmm This leans more into. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I've listened to a lot of Prada projects, but you're much more familiar with the band than me. That this album leans way more into the cleans than I feel like any of their previous
Yeah.
albums have.
Yeah.
And it lets the way that the uncleans come across so emotionally with the lyricism,
Yes.
it bolsters them to come across even better. Yeah, this album, instrumentally, vocally, lyrically, it's just like this 1, 2, 3 gut punch of impact in a way that I feel like a lot of other albums this year have succeeded maybe as strongly vocally or as strongly instrumentally, maybe not quite as strong lyrically. I think that lyrically this is the best album I've heard this year. But that no other album really has all of that together.
Yeah.
And this album, it just feels like a 10 out of 10 across the board, which is, I can't remember the last time that I heard an album
No,
like this.
I don't think I have either. Like, this is, like you said, I think with the balance of vocals, the Mike's, the Unclean's vocalist sounds a lot more like desperate almost, like,
Mhm.
and I think that in combination with the lyricism is what makes it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think 25 is probably the best example of that.
Yeah.
I never don't get goosebumps when I
Boost
when I hear that, man, bro, shit. But like hearing that first verse
Step
and the
20,
way
let's go.
that the way that it just sounds so raw when he says 25,
Mm.
it's chilling. I mean, this this is an album that I feel like you can appreciate objectively, but the more shit that you've been through, the
Yeah.
better this album becomes.
And also like each song is like has like a different reason to be like sad. Like
Mhm.
you could go to
Yeah.
like pick like there's a song for like anxiety, there's a song for like relationships, there's a song for
Which
loneliness.
one's the anxiety one? I need to re-listen to it.
I would say Noise.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to re-listen to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And even like the death of a friend or loved one, which we talked about, is Cancer. Each song is so individual, but it all flows together like so well in the context
Yeah.
of the album.
I don't ever feel like I'm listening to the album's runtime when I hear it. And it's not even like the runtime is long, but I go from song to song and I get to Cancer and I'm like, wait, it's over already?
Yeah.
Because I was just so engrossed in it every single time I listened. Yeah,
On the
another-
contrary, just gonna pop in real quick. While I listened to this album, I had a lot of enjoyment loving my cat who was taking a nap on my bed. And I got a lot more enjoyment out of playing with my cat than listening to the middle of this album.
man.
Okay, come on, man.
What a good cat.
Another
though.
thing I wanted to say
It was a good cat.
is the singles, I feel like, did not paint what this album would be like at
No.
all.
No.
And I honestly love it for that. Like we got a glimpse of it with Salt, but you kind of like think it's like a one-off kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the album, and all of a sudden the album artwork makes total sense.
Oh yeah.
And actually, like it was a really pleasant surprise that um the singles didn't represent the album.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Sacrifice, even I wasn't super high on it as a single. In the context of the album, forget about it. Like,
Yeah, like yeah, even like the single sonically, like I
Mhm.
mentioned, or you mentioned Sacrifice, Sacrifice, Watchtower, and even Time to an extent.
Yeah.
Uh, all I was like, this is. But then you hear it in the album, and you listen to the lyrics, and it's like, wow, this all makes sense.
Nothing, I feel like, you mentioned with that there's different lyric themes, but that it all comes together no matter, what the
Mhm.
theme is. It comes together a cohesive album. And I feel like I just want to kind of call back to how we just talked about Until I Wake, that it dealt with different things, but I feel like with Until I Wake, you could have switched any of those songs around for the most part into a different like track
Mhm.
listing and it would have been fine. I don't think you could rearrange a single song on here.
Mhm.
I think it just works perfectly as it, especially the way that the vocals kind of trade off on the last four, where you have something as raw and Unclean's focus is 25, followed by the mellow kind of renewing fire where it's cleans into uncleans and hallucinate into
Yeah,
mostly cleans and
I
cancer.
I love that. Like, I think Fire is the softest song on the album, and then it goes
Yeah.
straight into Hallucinate, which is the
Yeah.
heaviest song on the album.
And to me, that represents the two polar I don't want to say opposites, but the two sides of the feelings of this album,
Yes.
that the cleans and uncleans can mean two different things at any given point, but they can also work in tandem to create just
Mhm.
like the greatest thing you've ever heard. Noise. Um God, I want to give a special shout out to Exhibition too, because
Uh,
I think that breakdown with the mid breakdown call out of Step Back
yeah,
is like my favorite mid breakdown call out I've ever heard.
yeah.
There is nothing that gets me more hyped than hearing that Step Back in the middle of it. I love it.
For me,
Um,
oh sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say that I think too, Exhibition, Concrete Jungle, and Dream State by Dayseeker all exist in the same state of existence for me, in the sense that they all have this same kind of breakdown that feels like it's chugging along rather than a drop, if that makes
Yes.
sense. And I think that that's probably one of my favorite trends of the album openers that it's like to come out of this year, and that
Mhm.
music evolution.
Exhibition is probably my second favorite song on here, and I wish I had more to say about it. But even it being my second favorite song, I don't have much to add. And
I
again, I think that's more a testament to how much you guys have fell in love with this album, and just that there's so much you guys have already said that there's not much that someone like me can add at this point.
I think sonically, my favorite moment on the album is um in Noise,
Mm,
where that's like the breakdown. It's like I can't sleep, the sky's falling, rest in peace, the
yes,
noise is calling. And then after that cycle, they repeat it a bunch of times. It goes straight into the chorus.
yes. Yeah, Noise in general just has so many of my favorite moments on here. I think it's got my favorite chorus, especially the second half of the chorus. It goes, "We never even know what we could have been."
Mhm.
When he kind of raises that note just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I want to point out like lyrical moments from this album, but there's
Yeah.
way too many.
Well, I've
You
got
know?
25.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I think I gotta this is the song I want to dive into a little bit
Yeah,
lyrically, just
go
for the
for it.
review. Um, where the way I interpret it personally is like it's like a broken relationship, and one party's leaving the other, and the perspective is of the song is of the person who was left alone, and they're dwelling on hoping for this person to come back, and it's a battle with those like mixed feelings of like letting go and clinging on to hope, and then eventually letting that person go and accepting it's over, but not regretting the time you spent with them, because like it taught you a valuable lesson, or and it's, I don't know if it's like, it's a really complex feeling that I'm trying to describe,
No,
but
it makes
I,
sense, and it's go. Sorry.
and yeah, I feel like I'm not doing it a justice, but I think the way that Prada does it is like so masterfully done, and
Mm.
it resonates so well with me.
I think you and I interpreted 25 in distinctly opposite ways.
Well, yeah. How'd you interpret it then?
But I interpret it from the perspective of the person who got left, rather than the
Yeah,
person
yeah.
who did the leaving.
No, I interpreted like the person
Oh,
who got
oh,
left. Oh,
oh. Okay,
I,
I'm with you. Sorry.
yeah.
No, that I think the line for me there, we already mentioned the first verse, but the agony on by April the snow was melting.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
I
This whole
noticed
album
Prada
is
likes to
one big wow.
do that like with I can't remember what the lyric was, but something about like in October, in the last track of the act, this, I think it's Spiderhead. They mentioned October. It's like Prada really likes to mention months of the year, don't they?
Well, and I think that allows, because it's almost like a catch-all, right?
Mhm.
And I feel the same way about a garden song called Inside. That's kind of like my go-to whenever I'm feeling depressed or anxious. That it mentions November, and it's kind of like, well, if something didn't happen for you regarding the relationship in that month, you can still relate to the sentiment of the song. But by
Yeah,
giving somebody a specific month, you open yourself up to this whole wide group of listeners that could say, oh shit, I remember this happened to me in October, or I felt the relationship
yeah.
falling apart in April. And then you connect to it on a whole new level,
Well,
just opens up this whole new
well,
world.
for me, it did happen in April, so it's kind of
Oh,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I I could be here for
yeah,
hours.
I could, yeah, I
And
could as well.
I don't want to be for the sake of runtime, but I we're gonna be talking about this again
Well, yeah.
from the by the end of the year, and I truly think that this is. I mean, we're only 2 years into the decade, but this is easily gonna be one of the greatest, most defining albums to come out of the scene this decade, and has easily worked its way into my top 10 favorite albums of all time.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
for
truly
sure.
a perfectly, flawlessly executed album that's really unlike anything else I've heard this year.
I I know we wanted to end, but I think we have to talk about cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? That's a good note to end it on. The close of the album, the close of the discussion. I God, I don't want to fuck it up, so let me pull the exact thing. I hope that it's cancer and not something else, because I don't need any more things I don't want to talk about. That at this point you're so sick of having to think about all the things that have gone wrong or that are wrong with you. And at this point, you're just hoping that it's cancer so it'll kill you so you don't have to deal with the agony of living through all those things anymore. Like, just such
Oh, we
a.
interpreted it different ways.
Well, how did you interpret it?
Well, I read the what the song was about, so I kind of cheated, but
Oh.
um
So you're telling me I'm wrong.
well, no, because it's all subjective,
Just
right?
fucking with you. Yeah.
Um it's like a story about a hero of the keyboardist. He wrote the song, the keyboardist wrote the
Hmm.
song, and he died of an illness, and they don't know how he died. And basically the keyboardist's vote is hoping that he didn't die. He died of natural causes
Mm.
rather than he killed himself or something like that, because he struggled with mental illness. And so the whole song is about like hoping that they died of natural causes rather than
Mm.
mental illness.
I remember reading that lyric of "I hope it's cancer," and
Mm.
as someone that has only listened